So I'm going to take a quick look from above at our 4-year-old permaculture designed food forest. Pointed a few things from here, explain what they are, and then we'll go down and take a look at them. So up top here will be what we call the kitchen garden in permaculture. What Bill Mollison would say, has to pass the fuzzy slipper test. You should be able to go down there with your fuzzy slippers, pick your veggies first thing in the morning without getting dew on your slippers. See the goldfish are mating right now. There's 15 swales with hugel mounds or hugel beds, Hugelkultur grow beds on the back side of them. Each of these swales is interconnected down through the property, so as one fills, it overflows into the next one, and on down through, ending in the pond down below. We have 3 lined ponds, well, 1 lined pond, an old hot tub. I don't know if you can see it from here. There's another solid plastic tub up here for the ducks in the duck and chicken area. That's their enclosure. And then in almost all of these swales themselves, there'll be a small catch pond where the swale from above flows into it. That slows that water as it enters so it can fill that swale. That slows that water, allows it to fill that swale and seep into the ground. So this is the kitchen garden. Down below the kitchen garden is a long-term annual garden. It also has perennials in there. Assortment of fruit trees and berry bushes. We grow potatoes and garlic and onions and beans, cabbage, stuff like that that doesn't need a lot of attention, but we can just let it finish its cycle and harvest it. In the kitchen garden up here is where we grow the everyday vegetables. Kales and lettuces and spinach and tomatoes and cucumber and whatever else you might eat on a daily basis. Peas, as you can see here. Alright, let's go do a walkthrough. More plants that need to go in. Some new squash coming up in the center. That'll be in succession after these lettuces start bolting on us. Goldfish are mating. This is the kitchen garden. The herb spiral here. Got some leeks, Portuguese kale, spinach, red Russian kale, curly leaf kale, lots of kales, bok choys, lemon balm, cilantro, rosemary, an assortment of herbs in this area. Green surrounding everywhere. It's early in the spring now. We're May. It's all lettuces in here for now. Lots of squash starting to pop up. We're transplanting tomatoes today and eggplant. So in the kitchen garden is everyday vegetables we'll eat. Something we visit every day. It's in zone 1 in a permaculture design. Talk about zones in permaculture. Starting from the house being zone 0. To zone 5 being the wilderness. We're in the city limits here. We've got maybe 3 zones, partially 4. We're lucky in our back, a little bit of semi-wild area. Talk a little bit about zones as we walk through here. This kitchen garden, long-term annuals with perennials, assorted perennials within it. some perennial ground covers, fruit trees, berry bushes. And the entire outside is also covered with larger fruit trees, semi-dwarf fruit trees, fruiting shrubs, nitrogen fixing shrubs, edible ground covers, dynamic accumulating plants. These are all permaculture terms if they're new to you. You can look them up and talk a little bit about them as we walk through here. So we go from the kitchen garden, the greenhouse behind it, and the long-term annuals here. This ditch you see below me, it runs property wide. It's on contour, meaning it follows the undulations of the land, but it's level, so it holds water. So that catches that water, absorbs it, stores it into these grow beds behind it. I just mentioned the swale here, and these grow beds behind it. All these are hugel mounds. The term hugelkultur means buried organic matter. We got rid of an old dead oak tree here and a pine tree that were in the way, blocking the sun when we started this project 4 years ago. We took a lot of the radial branches, which is the outside branches. Most of the stuff that's 6 inches or smaller has as much nitrogen in the cambium layer just under the bark area. Branch wood proportions works out to a nice compost proportion, usually about 30 to 1 or so, carbon to nitrogen, because everything's heavy in carbon. So that radial branch wood has the cambium layer with the nitrogen in it, and the heartwood with the carbon in it, and it gives you about the right proportions. If something that's larger buried in there is going to have too much carbon and need that nitrogen. So at that point, it'll steal the nitrogen from the soil around it. There is some of the larger stuff in there, so in the first year or two of hugelkultur, you'll plant real heavy with nitrogen-fixing plants. You'll see a lot of clover, you plant a lot of peas, a lot of beans. What else? Different oats, hairy vetch, different seasons call for different things. So I pulled a lot of lemon balm out of here this morning. I'm going to divide it up. We've got too much of it, give some away, transplant some of it. It gives me a chance to dig in the soil here. I'll show you over there what we started with, which is a bright orange clay. And this is where those logs were. I might be able to dig down to a log, but if not, at least you can see the consistency of the soil now. It's just turned beautiful. You'll notice I don't have a shovel either. One more minute. So the soil test, it should be able to clump together. And if you squeeze it, it should break into little clumps. Just like that. Here's some of the original soil, clay. So in this first bed where I just took out that lemon balm, we looked at the soil. We've got some short neck, or whatever the term is, normal garlic here. Some long neck in the background. Assortment of cabbages throughout. Some peas in the front. Looks like a volunteer potato in there. Some strawberries on the perimeter. Daylilies. A couple of blueberries mixed in. Through succession, they'll get bigger and bigger and take over a lot of this area. Kind of proud of the front of this bed. It's they call it wattle and daub. This is just the wattle. We did this with bamboo off the property. And the things that start growing out of are all things that we want here. It's a black locust. You can see the thorns on it. That's a nitrogen fixer. Lamb's quarter. We eat that in our salads. This is anise hyssop. It's a volunteer now. All over the property. I wish you could smell that. It's a red clover. Chickweed, another real great salad green and chicken food. A magenta lamb's quarter. That gets on your fingers if you touch it. Large comfrey plant in full flower right now. This is one of the dynamic accumulators I talked about. Has a very deep tap root. Brings up those nutrients from down below and those minerals from down below that a lot of these shallow rooted plants can't access. And then as I chop and drop these leaves, I leave them at the base of these other plants, and it leaves those nutrients there for them as it decomposes. This next bed's got a lot of the beets and chards. No, I guess it's all beets in there. A red basil coming in, more cabbage, cilantro, carrots throughout. More anise, some claytonia, or I'm sorry, yeah, claytonia. Don't remember what that flower is, just transplanted that. And so on the other side of that, I've got more strawberries. Took some out here. I had to remove some oregano here. I'm going to put that up in the herb garden. Put more strawberries in here. Got some onions. A couple garlic got mixed in, looks like. This is a Cornelian cherry. It's called a bush cherry. They're a short cherry. It'll be an understory for that. I'm not sure if that's a gold rush apple. Have to look. There's an elderberry on the outside, blackberries along the fence, black raspberries, potatoes in here. This is Sochan. It's getting a little past its time, but you take these young shoots, parboil them shortly, and then we put them in a saute with our greens. It's really good. It's got almost a peppery, nutty taste. This is hazelnut. I don't have it marked what kind. This is a fig. More strawberries, some young lettuces in there, some more comfrey, some squash that'll curl around here, some beets. Filbert, that's what I was looking for. These are both filbert hazelnuts. This one's a feta, and I don't remember what that one is. I believe they are self-fertile, but it makes it much better when you have two of them. So I guess it's a good time to talk about spacing of your trees. This was all lawn when I started. We turned into some swales and some Hugelkultur and started planting fruit trees. A big thing is your spacing of your trees. Know its finished height, its finished size when you plant it. We've made a lot of adjustments since then, but I'll show you a lot of plants here that we planted just way too close together. This one behind me, the fig, is just a mistake. It's one of the plants. The figs and the elderberries and currants and the gooseberries are very easy to propagate. You can just take a cutting, stick it in the ground, and it goes. So I was pruning this other fig, and I just took one of the cuttings and stuck it here. I didn't think it would take, but it's going to crowd that hazelnut. I'm going to have to make a decision here in the next year or two. What else while I'm rambling? Lots of garlic. I think we got close to 200 heads of garlic this year, or cloves of garlic this year, so we'll have to sell some of that. It's probably the biggest cilantro plant I've ever grown. And ground covers and potatoes. There's some rhubarb in there, more comfrey. Again, you can see this young black locust. That'll be fixing nitrogen for the hazelnut behind it. We'll coppice that, cut it off of the ground every other year, every third year. It's a real good wood for... Oh, look at that cardinal. I don't know if you can see him. Flew right by me. Good for firewood and fence posts and
It's not as rot resistant, so it's more good for like axe handles and things, but great firewood. A lot of energy in it. More potatoes, more rhubarb, they're new this year. Elderberries and black raspberries along the fence. Another young apple tree. 3 grape plants along here. Some asparagus mixed in. So these are about 4 years old now. We get quite a few grapes off these at this point. So looking up from here again, you can see cabbages, garlic, some Jerusalem artichokes, cauliflower, broccoli, a couple of pear trees, quite a few hazelnuts, a couple of apple trees, a fig, some cornelian cherries, and then we're surrounded by black raspberries and red raspberries. And then I had to take out the thornless blackberries this year. They got a disease, so I had to dig them all out. I had to get rid of 20 plants, unfortunately. Don't remember the name of the rust, but it was the rust that runs right down to the root system. So you win some, you lose some. You can see all the young sunflowers coming in here. This would be a sunflower oil, a sunflower seed we're growing for the oil. One of my high-tech gates. Keeps the chickens out. Some more raspberries. This is a pink lemonade blueberry. A couple of Duke blueberries. You know, I don't really remember the name of all of them. Some spearmint, chocolate mint, some strawberries mixed in. There's a few of those thornless blackberries that didn't seem to get affected. Young pawpaw. Pond's under construction. Used to have a stream that came down through here. It's changed into a small waterfall here. Seemed like too valuable an area to waste with the stream. This is an Oregon grape. More mint and flowers in the base. This is a Cornelian cherry. See the young cherries. More Jerusalem artichokes and stinging nettles. Lemon balm surrounding the base of another Nanking cherry. There's another dwarf cherry, understory cherry. That'll be the understory for this Gold Rush apple. Lots of clover ground cover. This is a Josta berry here. The autumn olive in the middle is a nitrogen fixer. A gooseberry on the other end. Quite a bit going on in the guild down below. I'm not good with the flowers. And there's some lilies and some irises. I believe a crocus. Young autumn olives. So this Josta berry. See if I can find a berry. That's a Josta berry. It's a cross between a currant and a gooseberry. And these are my gooseberries here. You can see it looks just like a gooseberry. So the gooseberry has thorns all over the stem of the plant and a slightly different leaf. And the jastaberry doesn't. And so this guild here is filling in. It's got the horseradish, lilies and irises in the background. Some thornless blackberries. Can't remember the name of that flower, thanks Mom. Comfrey, bee balm, strawberries in the front. That's a apple tree with a couple of grafts on, a graft on it. So it's a couple apple trees in one. It's a gummy berry behind it, or next to it there. It's another nitrogen fixer, as is the autumn olive. Note to people at this point, check the autumn olive isn't invasive in your area. We're in North Carolina. They don't sell it in South Carolina, and they don't sell it in Tennessee, and I do see it all over in the wild here. It's probably not one of the better ones to put on your property. We've been cutting it back pretty hard, and we'll probably get rid of it here in the next year or two. Replace it with an apple tree. But it does fix that nitrogen by replacing it and leaving a lot of those roots there. It will feed the next tree. These are wine berries down here with some Jerusalem artichokes coming up. Another bush cherry, sour cherry. This is silverberry. That fig would be another example where I just stuck a fig in the ground, stuck a branch in the ground. Didn't believe it would take, but sure enough it did. Some young figs on it. Another hazelnut, elderberries, raspberries underneath, golden seal, another young apple in the background. These are yellow raspberries, strawberries in the middle. Elderberries are just starting to flower. This is our medicine wheel elderberry. Thank you, Patricia. One of my instructors. These are the gummy berries. They'll get big and turn yellow. They're yummy. This whole bush is loaded with them. So as I said, this fig's something that I just stuck in the ground here. A cutting that I stuck in the ground, not thinking it would make it. It's way too close to the silverberry and the gummy berry. Just wasn't thinking at the time. I just took a cutting and stuck it in. But it does give me lots of material. I can try to transplant it, or I can just cut all these off and make lots of new starts out of it. Fig is one of the plants that you just stick into the ground, and it takes quite easily. Just keep it moist. There's some sochan. I didn't talk about that. That's an edible perennial green. More of that in here. It's another fig cutting from last year. They just stuck in the ground as I was pruning. There's another gooseberry there. A semi-dwarf apple tree. Surrounded by 3 plums, a couple of Asian pears. Another canning pear back here. More elderberries. Hi everybody. It's one of the ducks' ponds. So I think we should talk about. We catch their nutrients. They swim and poop in there all day. About once a week we agitate that. Pump that out with a garden hose and a small pump onto the garden beds. Catching and storing that energy. Catching those nutrients. That's the other side of that first swale I talked about. Goes all the way over into the annual garden beds. We just let this organic matter stay in here, and it gives us this beautiful soil underneath, and we dig it out. Use it as a compost on top of the beds. Okay, we looked at the kitchen garden. Long-term annuals with perennials and edible perennial greens mixed in, some fruit trees and berry bushes. Grape plants, surrounded by berry plants. The food forest side with the majority of the fruit trees. Perennial bushes and green and ground covers. Last thing is the aquaponic greenhouse. Not a lot going on this time of year. Everything in the yard starts going, so I just put this on a standby. Just keeping up.